Hi, I'm Jefferson Drexler, and this is Parent Like You Mean It, the podcast where we talk about parenting with purpose today, so hopefully our kids will have a better foundation and a better position tomorrow. Now, before we get rolling, I just want to say thank you to Christian Podcast Central. ChristianPodcastCentral.com is a place where you're going to find not just more Parent Like You Mean It, but many other encouraging and engaging podcasts and videos that I think you're really going to love. And just want to say thank you for them for their sponsorship in all of this. Now, the other night, my son asked a very interesting question. He said, "What is hell like?" Now, in case you're wondering, this question didn't come out of nowhere. We were actually discussing a biblical perspective of life without God in it, which led to hell. I just don't want you to think that we're sitting around the dinner table and the conversation consisted of, hey, how was school today? Hey, will you please pass the taquitos? And what's hell like? No, that's not typically the way our dinner discussions go. Anyways, when I was a boy, I was told that hell was like treading water in a giant lake full of booger, snot, and mucus. And with the level of this grossness hovering just above your chin line, the devil himself would come along every so often on a jet ski and splash boogers, snot, and mucus into your eyes, mouth, nose, and hair. The description left an indelible mark on my psyche for sure. But perhaps more accurately, hell can be better described as an eternal existence without God. I mean, imagine that, a life completely devoid of the Creator and all of His divine attributes. A world without love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control, justice, righteousness, gentleness, mercy, patience, grace, forgiveness. You get it. You talk about a world that I wouldn't want to live in. Suddenly, the booger, snot, and mucus didn't seem quite as bad. But today's episode isn't about my teaching my kids about hell. It's about what all of us are teaching our kids regarding where our society is headed. Are we drawing nearer to an existence with or without these things? Or to quote Schoolhouse Rock, are we working toward a more perfect union? Or something else entirely? And that's when Saturday morning cartoons enters into the picture. You see, as a kid, Saturday morning cartoons were one of my life's highest priorities. In addition to Schoolhouse Rock, there were the Super Friends and Scooby-Doo, the Fantastic Four, Bugs Bunny, Roadrunner, and yes, even Speedy Gonzales and Pepe Le Pew. They were all staples of my entertainment, my enjoyment, and even my education. Oddly enough, they reinforced the lessons that my parents and my teachers taught me regarding teamwork, friendship, our nation's history and goals, work ethic, dating, and the difference between rabbit season and duck season. But I also remember the hubbub surrounding Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There were haters. They asserted that if kids filled their minds with these ultra-violent reptiles, then we'd grow up to become a violent generation obsessed with hand-to-hand combat and eating pizza. Instead, Gen X grew up to be balanced, active, and happy, according to a plethora of sociological studies. We even use big words like plethora and sociological. And instead of becoming a generation hell-bent on dropping anvils and pianos on our enemies as these evil cartoons had instructed us, we're the generation who brought the world Google, Wikipedia, Amazon, and YouTube, for better or for worse. And my point is, while we were entertained by the likes of The Muppet Show, we weren't ever tempted to fall in love with chickens, frogs, or pigs. In other words, as a generation, we've been able to parse apart the good from the bad, the comical from the serious, the virtuous from the absurd, and do it all properly within our entertainment. And therefore, we enjoyed it all, no matter how problematic these shows may appear today. So don't give me any of this garbage about canceling Pepe Le Pew because some idiot may be influenced by his antics to become a rapist. Don't ignorantly assume that any parent today is racist against Mexicans because they grew up watching Speedy Gonzales. Heck, the odds are better that thousands of young track stars in the 70s and 80s, they were positively influenced by the wisecracking mouse. So leave the little guy alone. But enough about animated evils that have been recently labeled as problematic and are being removed from our cultural lexicon. Let's talk about real life problems. In the past year, we've seen a California school district work to rename 44 of its campuses because they felt that the school names paid tribute to people with discriminatory legacies. Senator Dianne Feinstein, conservationist John Muir, Spanish explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa, and even Presidents George Washington and Abraham Lincoln were listed among the heroes that the San Francisco School Board felt, this is a quote, engaged in the subjugation and enslavement of human beings, oppressed women, led to genocide, or diminish the opportunities of those amongst us to the right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Seriously? Washington didn't do enough to fight for our unalienable rights? When Honest Abe was assassinated because of his efforts to rid our nation of slavery, that wasn't enough personal sacrifice for the betterment of mankind? Or let's take a look at some current cultural icons who are paying the price for being declared living on the wrong side of history. There's Gina Carano, a favorite around my house for her work on the show The Mandalorian. Gina had the audacity to tweet a very disturbing photo from Nazi-era Germany of a woman screaming, crying, and bleeding, running away from her attackers in her undergarments. Her attackers, by the way, were children. And Gina added the caption, this is her quote, "Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors, even by children." Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews, unquote. Now, almost immediately after posting this blunt warning against hating our neighbors, the actress was fired by Disney, dropped by her talent agency, and Hasbro even took her Star Wars action figures off of the market. Hey, thanks for saving Baby Yoda, Gina, but you ticked off the wrong 50% of American voters, so your acting career must be terminated. Who knows what societal damage you might incite with your tweets if you appear on any more episodes of a fictional show taking place in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Then there's Chris Harrison, host of the show The Bachelor, and all of its spin-offs for the last 20 years. Now, let me just say that I've never seen a single full episode of Harrison's Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, Bachelor Pad, nor any other Bachelor-based broadcast brothel type show. But there is no denying that Harrison did the heavy lifting while raking in millions of viewers and billions of dollars for ABC over 2 decades. But that all came to a screeching halt when he suggested that Americans should offer grace to a recent contestant and a chance for her to speak on her own behalf, when old photos of her surfaced attending a fraternity sorority party while dressed in a Gone with the Wind style dress. Yep, that was her sin. That was her grievous, terrible sin. Attending a themed party that had nothing to do with glorifying slavery, dressed like Scarlett O'Hara. And all Harrison did was say, let's give the girl some time and some grace. But the powers that be said, nope, sorry, Chris. Frankly, we don't give a damn. And we're not going to give her nor you any grace whatsoever. But we will keep cashing in the $1 million checks from Netflix, Hulu, and other syndication outlets that you continue to earn for us. Other recent victims of this phenomenon that have made headlines include Chris Pratt, Jeremy Renner, and James Gunn. And those are just the ones related to Marvel movies. Each of them was either fired from their job or threatened with such simply because of old tweets that they may have posted, words that they may have said long ago, or beliefs held by organizations they are tangentially aligned with, not because of anything they say, do, or actually believe that actually harm people. Now, don't get me wrong. Bill Cosby should be in jail for the way that he drugged and raped those girls. Louis C.K. should indeed have faced the consequences of actually treating women in a beyond disgusting manner. But comedian Kevin Hart? Well, he never did anything worthy of being forced to step down from hosting the 2019 Oscars. All he did was tell racy, politically incorrect jokes that may not have aged well, but haven't caused any real harm to anyone, ever. Now, I'm not pointing out all these instances of cancel culture to merely gripe and moan about people who agree with me losing in the culture wars to those on the other side. I'm pointing them out to reveal the tip of the iceberg of a real phenomenon that is sweeping across our country. Because if your only news source has been the likes of CNN or NBC, you'd be convinced that incidents of people being ostracized from their professions, schools, and the public square are merely figments of your imagination. Balanced news feeds are flooded with headlines spanning from cancel culture is not real and cancel culture is a myth to cancel culture strikes again. But if we were to really dive into the evidence of celebrities and average Joes alike facing forced resignations after being labeled as problematic, the truth is that cancel culture is real and it sucks. There are simply too many powerful people making too much persuasive noise based on hypothetical what-ifs rather than actual harmful behaviors. And innocent people are losing their jobs, getting kicked off their teams, and are facing expulsion from school based on ancient tweets, bad jokes, or innocent mistakes that are all completely harmless. No child has ever watched Dumbo or Peter Pan, sang along with the Crow or Indian characters, and then were inspired to grow up to become neo-Nazis. No one has ever played with an old Mr. Potato Head and was convinced to join the ranks of misogyny, bigotry, or transphobia. Yet, the reality is that an unreal small group of people feigning imaginary offense has been promoted to the roles of judge, jury, and career executioner. The world that they're creating and demanding that the rest of us reside in is completely devoid of patience, kindness, humility, selflessness, faith, hope, mercy, grace, and forgiveness. In other words, these people who demand that our monuments be stripped down, our schools be renamed, and our conservatives be cast out, these cultural authorities demand that we live in a world without love. And as I said earlier, an existence without love, without patience, and kindness, and humility, selflessness, faith, hope, mercy, grace, and forgiveness, what's quite simply a life without God, His presence, and all the precious things that stem from Him. To put it more simply, they want us to live in hell. They demand it. Now let me make that perfectly clear. In the current cultural climate, the left has made themselves abundantly clear that there is no room for grace, patience, mercy, or forgiveness. Once they deem you guilty or problematic, there is no dialogue, no grace, no live and let live, just immediate excommunicado. And a world without grace, mercy, patience, or forgiveness is by definition a hell on earth. So going back to my family's dinner conversation, the real question isn't what is hell like? We know that. But the question really is, are we there yet? And if our kids are growing up in a society resembling a godless living hell, well, what will we do as parents? Do we tell them to lay low and get along to get along? Do we instruct them to turn the other cheek until all four cheeks have been bruised and battered? Or do we arm them with a foundational belief system that is so strong that when they put their foot down, their convictions stand firm without compromise, but always with truth wrapped in love, patience, kindness, humility, selflessness, faith, hope, mercy, grace, and forgiveness? And maybe, just maybe, if enough of our kids hold these truths to be self-evident, then they'll rise up to become tomorrow's leaders, and they'll lead us out of this cancel culture hell that we are living in today. For Parent Like You Mean It, I'm Jefferson Drexler.